Let's face it, businesses are having a rough time right now during COVID. And on this episode of Harford County Living with Rich Bennett, I have the Harford County Health Department, and we're going to talk about business compliance during COVID. And if you're a business owner, don't worry, there's no need to be scared. The health department is there to educate you, so you're fine. But there's some great guidelines that a lot of people don't know about that we're going to tell you about on this episode. Also, make sure you listen to the very end, because at the very end, I'm going to tell you how you can win something. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Harford County Living with Rich Bennett, coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union studios. Each week, you'll hear interesting interviews, commentary, discussions, storytelling, and more. Here's your host, Marine Corps veteran, professional DJ, entrepreneur, podcaster, and my father, Rich Bennett.
I'd like to welcome everybody to Harford County Living with Rich Bennett. Today, I have the Harford County Health Department on again. And with everything going on with COVID, thought it'd be a good idea to talk about compliance, business compliance. So I'm going to go around, and everybody that is joining me on the podcast, I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself. And I'll start with you, Molly, since you're the first one I see.
So, Molly Mraz, I am the Public Information Officer for the Health Department and the Communications Director. And I have a little bit of responsibility with compliance.
Marcy Austin. I'm Deputy Health Officer, and I can give you a little history on this when it's time, because I've been working with the compliance team from the beginning, back in April.
Dr. Bashai, I'm the new health officer. I have just been on the job for a little over a week. I'm a physician. I practice in the emergency room down at St. Joseph's. I've had 24 years as a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. New to compliance, but it sure seems to be something we do need to work harder at.
Dr. Bashai, let me start by saying thank you, and it's nice meeting you, even though I don't see you. It's still nice to actually talk to you.
It's great to be with you, Rich.
Who else? We have Hannah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Hannah Lux. I work in the Community Hygiene Division, which is in environmental health, but I am kind of the lead inspector, I guess I would say, when it comes to COVID compliance. We currently have, it's me, and then it's also Jimmy. So basically, anytime we get 3 or more complaints, or we get a high priority complaint that comes in from the state police, we go in and do the inspection. But basically, we're really just hoping to work with businesses to keep them open, to give them, educational materials. So when we go into those inspections, most of these businesses are passing. And if they don't, we give them all the tools that they need in order to become passing and stay open safely.
Which brings us to Jimmy.
Yep, I'm Jimmy Weixel. I'm in the Retail Food Control Division, Environmental Health, and I've been assisting Hannah with the COVID compliance inspection. So I'm basically like her little sidekick, I guess.
Wait, so Jimmy and Hannah, you do the retail food part?
That's my main job, is the retail food, but I've been helping out with the COVID compliance inspection since she's been overwhelmed and needed some help.
Okay. And then we have Christina and Rania are joining us as well.
Yes. Hi, Christina Claypool. I'm a health policy analyst, and actually just in January, I started helping with the COVID compliance. So I'm actually kind of coordinating when we get emails from the state police. We have a team that calls the businesses to let them know that there were different complaints. And so I coordinate that. And then also Hannah and I have been working on doing more of like an education front to these businesses to help them out and let them know that we're there to help them stay open.
Rania Nassar. I'm also a health policy analyst for the health department. And I've actually been working with Marcy on compliance since its inception. So it's been a wild ride, and I am thankful that I can pass my compliance duties on to other people, such as Christina and Hannah and Jimmy, and they've all been doing such a great job since kind of taking it over, and it's been interesting, to say the least.
I was going to say because, well, of course, this is new, COVID, and the compliance. Is this like a new team that's been put together in the health department?
So, Rich, do you want me to give a little background on that?
Yes, please.
And then I'll let the others speak to what they're doing. So way back in April, the health department met with community members or community agencies. It was the Department of Emergency Services, the police chiefs from Bel Air, Aberdeen, and Havre de Grace, the sheriff, the state police, Harford County government, and the state's attorney to discuss our business compliance process. And that was in response to the governor's executive order for regulating certain businesses and facilities. And we all know that order has been updated several times, and we've just tried to go with the flow on that. The orders delegated authority to local health officials to control and close unsafe facilities. So we all came to the conclusion at that meeting that the health department would set forth a plan to respond to the complaints about businesses and restaurants, which I think Hannah's going to get into a little bit more after this. The main purpose of the compliance process is to assist businesses in following all the guidelines outlined in the governor's order by conducting inspections and providing education. And, as Hannah mentioned earlier, we want businesses to stay open, so we do whatever we can to give them the education they need to do that. So we stay in touch with, close touch with the county government, the sheriff's office, the county council, and the state's attorney's office if we ever come across a situation where there's a blatant disregard for the guidance.
Right.
And that's been rare. We've been able mostly to get everybody up to speed. So that's a little bit of the history.
Well, that's good that's been rare, too, because it depending on where you look, you see people complaining all the time about this and that. And one of the things that, Marcy, you said it best, that you're educating these businesses. And that's a lot because, well, let's face it, a lot of people, God, how can I say this? I guess even some business owners, they don't believe in this COVID thing, which we all know it is a fact. It is out there. And the fact that you're educating them and helping them, I think people got to realize this is real. This is something you need to worry about. The good thing is that I'm seeing businesses change and become more aware of not just COVID, but other things and the safety. It's amazing.
Absolutely.
I mean, whoever thought that you would see, especially restaurants, cleaning up as much as they do now, which to me is great because this is something that should have been done way before COVID started. But even to the fact of where I've seen some restaurants still close down for a day or two each month just to do a complete cleanup and sterilization and all that. And I don't know if that's part of the guidelines, but to me, it makes sense.
Yes.
This is Dr. Bishai. I like the way you're putting it because we are helping the businesses in Harford County find the new way to put their customers first and to do better customer service. And one of the best ways that you can put the customer first is to ensure their safety. And the rules of how to make your customers safe have now changed with COVID.
Yes.
And there is a new way to show your customers that you care about them and you want them to have the best experience they can have. So that's what we're helping businesses do. It helps them become more competitive. I'll share a story. Last night, I needed some work on my car. I went to an auto body shop just down the road, and they were not wearing masks inside the auto body shop. They're not going to get my business because I want people who want to keep me safe and healthy.
Right.
And it's a competitive industry, and I'll find someone else to fix my car.
Yeah, it makes sense. And the thing is, That's something I don't understand. What is so hard about wearing a mask? And you see people complaining all the time. I don't want to cover up. I don't want to wear it. I don't need one. I'm not sick. No, it doesn't matter. You're protecting other people around you. Wear the mask. And I love Governor Hogan's message. Just wear the damn mask. You can't be any more blunt than that.
And I think it just takes time. It takes time for people to realize that the mask is a sign that you care about people. It really is. It took us a while to figure out that smoking indoors was dangerous for others. You can smell tobacco smoke, and you can understand how innocent people shouldn't be exposed to it. But the stuff that comes out of an asymptomatic person who doesn't feel bad, it's taking time to realize that your own breath could be dangerous to other people. And it is, because you don't know whether or not you have the disease right now. And just breathing can hurt other people. And you have to wear a mask because you don't want to be the one who hurts another human being.
With the restaurants, and Marcy, I don't know if you can answer this or if it'd be Hannah, because you're seeing the plexiglass, I guess, in the rest. I haven't been into a restaurant since it started, but I guess there's plexiglass up between the booths and all. Is that part of the compliance?
Yeah. So, sorry, Marcy.
That's okay. I was going to leave you to it.
So when it comes to the plexiglass, it's not required. It's something that a lot of businesses, restaurants, especially, but all over, other businesses have also done it. When it comes to the plexiglass, it's just another barrier. So none of our barriers that we have, so the mask, the social distancing, none of it's perfect.
Right.
It's all combined. That's what's keeping you safest. So if you can increase the number of, things that you're doing to prevent the spread, you're going to be more safe. When it comes to the barriers, there is some confusion that I saw initially. I believe it was, early fall or in the summer. There is a regulation that was put out by MDH that said that you can have a plexiglass barrier and you wouldn't have to close every other booth. But that only applies to outdoor dining, which, unfortunately, it's now getting cold. So a lot of places have had to stop their outdoor dining. So you still do need to close every other booth for indoor dining, even if you have those plexiglass barriers. But it is still nice. It's another precaution. It's a good thing that, when customers walk in, they can see that the restaurant cares and has put in some time in order to, try to do everything that they can to make the restaurant safe. It doesn't mean that other restaurants that don't have it should have it. It really depends on the setup of the restaurant and, what they are doing and where they are and everything like that.
Well, and actually, since it seems like, restaurants have taken a big hit during this time, and let's face it, we don't know when and if this will ever end. What are some of the things that restaurants have to do in order to be within compliance?
Yeah, so there are a couple main things that are specific to restaurants, and then there are also the general things. So the biggest thing is the mask wearing.
Right.
We were talking about it before. It's unfortunately sometimes a little difficult. They're not the most comfortable thing, especially when you're working in a hot kitchen. Kitchens, it's already hard to hear. And if somebody's trying to speak to you, and then it gets muffled with the mask. But the mask is really one of the most important key things with restaurants and all businesses. With restaurants as well, they need to make sure that their capacity is limited to 50%. That's what it is currently right now.
Right.
I like to say that, everything is subject to change. We never really know when the regulations might change, but right now
Exactly.
it's 50%. And that every other booth needs to be closed. And then tables also need to be 6 feet apart. And the key thing is that it's when people are sitting at the tables, if they're back to back, that needs to be 6 feet apart, not just the table itself. Obviously, the key is to have the customer sitting 6 feet apart. A More specific to restaurants is restaurants do have to symptom check their employees prior to every shift.
Oh,
So this might be a temperature check. It can be a screening questionnaire. They have a couple of different options, but that is required for all restaurants to do for all of their staff. Other businesses, it's highly recommended, but not required. And then the typical things like disinfection. So tables, chairs, all shared items need to be disinfected between customers. And, if there's a case, and, they should have extra disinfection. But otherwise, it's the same things for most businesses. The only real difference is that the symptom checks for restaurant specific employees.
what about as far as like the bars? So, in other words, restaurants that have a bar, people sitting at the bar.
Yeah, so this can get a little tricky. So bar patrons and customers who are not from the same family or the same group, they do need to be seated 6 feet apart. So typically when I go into a restaurant or a bar that just has a bar, I advise them to set up their chairs so that they're maybe in pairs or in 3 chairs, and then have a spacing of 6 feet apart, just so when customers come in, they don't automatically sit next to a stranger and are too close. But obviously, if they do have a group of 5 people who all want to sit at the bar and they are coming in as a group, they're allowed to sit there all together. They don't have to be 6 feet apart from each other. But then, the next group has to be 6 feet apart. So I've been kind of working with restaurants and bars to have the visual cues. I think that's one of the most important things. It prevents us from getting complaints also, because when customers walk in, they know that the bar is being separated because they can see it. Places are taped off, chairs are missing, anything like that. And again, if you're not seating customers, when customers go to seat themselves, they're automatically going to be spaced. We do have some trouble with it sometimes. Sometimes customers will move the chairs themselves. So I don't envy the people who are working the bar, the bartenders that have to, unfortunately tell the customers that they have to remain spaced. But, that is something that is required, that 6 feet spacing.
And I kind of feel dumb asking this question, but I don't know. As far as the restaurants go, do they have to use plastic utensils and cups, or?
No, they don't.
Okay.
So you can feel safe with eating at a restaurant in terms of using reusable cutlery and plates and everything like that, because they're cleaned and disinfected and they're done. That's their regular process already.
Right.
So you don't really have to worry COVID wise, because you don't have to worry other disease wise. All of these restaurants are making sure that anything reusable, all of their dishes, that is all being disinfected between customers already. So it's perfectly fine to use, reusable plates and cutlery.
What about barware like glasses? Because if you, hopefully you won't have a crowded bar, but should they take, like, if you're drinking a draft beer or something, should they give you a new glass each time?
So I'm not positive if that is already a regulation in the food guidelines, because I don't do actually regular inspections. But in terms of COVID, I would suggest that that's how they do it. It's not a requirement as far as I know. But just for sanitary practice in general, they probably shouldn't be reusing cups if they're taking it, back up to like a soda machine and are going to touch anything with that cup. With COVID, we're also slightly less concerned about surfaces, but any other diseases, you don't want that spreading, especially on like a soda nozzle or anything like that, because it's wet, it's moist. Any sort of bacteria is going to, love that as a growing place.
Okay, back up a minute. You said we're not as concerned as COVID on surfaces?
So it's obviously something that we want to be aware of, but the scientific research at this point, and again, always subject to change, but the main way that COVID is spreading is through the air, is through the respiratory droplets. So that's what we're mostly concerned about. It's less likely that you'll pick it up from, say, a table or a doorknob. But the other thing is there are other diseases that you might pick up
Right.
from those same tables and doorknobs that, typically happen in the winter season. So you still want to be careful with that. But,
Okay.
when it comes to COVID, we are more concerned with the airborne transmission.
Right. Yeah. All right. So we covered restaurants, but all businesses are different. Well, actually, back to the restaurants 1 minute, real quick. What about as far as carry out goes?
Yeah. So
How has that changed?
carry out is a really great option. I hope, I haven't seen any statistics, but I really hope that that's been, the main life force for a lot of businesses. I know that I probably carry out food too many times a week. But, it's a great option for people who are not comfortable or people who are not able to eat inside restaurants. You can feel safe again because restaurants are always concerned about food safety. Always.
Mhm.
That's, a big part of everything that they're doing is food safety. So you can be, comforted that the food that you're getting is going to be safe. The containers are, it's definitely worth it to support those restaurants to get some good food that you didn't have to cook. And yeah, I mean, there's not much that's a danger with carry out. You tend to get in, get out. You can order online or call ahead. So you're only in the building for a short time. Everyone should be masked. Everyone should be social distancing while you're waiting for that order. But especially if you pay online, basically the only thing you have to touch is, the doorknob to get in and your food. So
Right.
it's a really great option. I definitely support carry out.
So is there any other business where, things change for them where it's different than the restaurants? And I'm thinking of that because if Dr. Bashai saying with taking his car in to get fixed and they weren't wearing a mask, even mechanics are constantly handling things, talking to people and all that. So does the compliance change for them?
Yeah, so we have our checklists that we have with all of the potential violations for businesses, and we basically have two different checklists. We have one for food service facilities, which includes restaurants, but basically anywhere that has food that's being served. So even like grocery
Mhm.
stores are included in that. And then we also have our non-food service facility checklist. This one has a lot of the same things. Again, it's the mask wearing,
Mhm.
it's the social distancing. So mask wearing and social distancing, that's required at all businesses. So for instance, even at the health department, we all wear masks unless we're alone in an office with the room shut.
Right.
We've spaced out our desks so that they're 6 feet apart, or we've moved around. So that's at all businesses should be keeping up that mask wearing, keeping up that social distancing. And I understand that in some businesses, you might have to work closely with somebody at one point. So if it's two auto mechanics and they're working on the same car, for something that has to be done by two people, we just would, advise them to keep that to, about 15 minutes or less, that
Yeah.
those people are working close together if possible. But most other things are recommendations for the other businesses. So we do have signage that's required for restaurants, but we recommend it for other businesses. That's just things like don't enter if you're sick and, you have to wear a mask, things that are pretty well known at this point.
Right.
And, we recommend the symptom checks for other businesses, but we can't require it. There are a couple of businesses that have maybe more specific things as well. So, or things that are more related to their business. So for instance, like fitness centers, they have to worry about the spacing of their machines and the mask wearing of the fitness centers and things like that. So it's very specific to the business. So when I've been training Jimmy, I've had to bring him to all sorts of different businesses because everyone is slightly different.
Yeah. I was going to say, because with fitness centers and gyms, a lot of them have showers. So, I mean, there's got to be some different things there too, right?
So right now, there's nothing in the guidance from MDH or the executive order that prohibits showering at gyms or,
Okay.
using shared locker rooms. That's one of those things that, I would encourage you that if you're able to shower at home before you go to the
Yes.
gym or after you go to the gym, to go to the gym wearing your gym clothes, which I know is harder in the winter. It's pretty cold. Um, but just try to limit your time when you're in the locker room. Try to stay spaced. For the gym owners, I would recommend that they're making sure that the ventilation in their locker rooms and throughout the facility, is kept to, appropriate levels to keep that airflow going. Everything has a little bit of a risk at this point, but we're just, trying to keep life as normal as we possibly can for both the customers and the businesses, to kind of keep things going a little bit.
You just brought up something interesting there, and I don't know if any of you can answer this or not, but with ventilation, is there anything that businesses need to add to their ventilation system to make them compliant?
So as far as I know, it would kind of come down to their construction, which is not really our department. But
Okay.
they should have their ventilation permitted for their building already when the building was created, when it was built. So
Hmm.
there's nothing additional that is required. Certain businesses have added extra filters or extra, disinfecting things. When it comes to that, I would just advise businesses to make sure that they're doing their research. With COVID, there have been a lot of new products that have gone on the
Hmm.
market specifically for ventilation systems. Not all of them have been approved by the FDA or the USDA. I'm not entirely sure. EPA, maybe? I'm not entirely sure which organization would do it.
One
But
of them.
just to make sure that those ventilation systems, that there is the scientific evidence that they're doing anything before you're spending, hundreds or thousands of dollars on a system. Just make
Right.
sure that the science is backing it and try to find that science from outside sources, not just what the business presents to you. We don't want anyone to lose money when they're already so tight, especially when they're trying to do something right. And then, they end up with a system that's unfortunately not really doing anything.
All right, and this question I hate to ask, but what happens if a business is not under compliance?
Yeah, so we give, like I said, we're trying to work with the businesses. So the businesses have, a lot of communication with us.
Hmm.
Basically, how our system works is typically it's the 3 complaint system. So we get complaints from various sources. So we'll get phone calls, we'll get emails, we'll get things sent to us from the state. We'll even get things sent to us from other county or state departments. They all come to us in various ways. So
Right.
we take those complaints in, we have them all down, and then we contact the business with that first complaint. We explain the complaint. We talk to the business, a manager, an owner, try to kind of figure out the situation. If we sense that, maybe they didn't know that they were doing something wrong, we provide an entire information packet for them. And we did create a new web page specifically for businesses in relation to COVID. So we are going to start sending out that link as well today, I believe starting
Good.
today, so that these businesses can read everything that we're looking for and, make sure that they know how to do everything right. And then the second complaint we get, we call them again. We tell them, this is the second complaint that we've received. If it's a different complaint, we try again to work with them to, figure out what we can do to get them back onto compliance. And then we do give them the caution that if we receive a third complaint, we will have to send in the inspectors. So that would be me and Jimmy. And so on that third complaint, when we do inspect, basically, one or both of us, sometimes we do have another person who will come with us. Often, since I've been training Jimmy recently, we've gone together. We'll come in, we explain who we are, why we're there. We give them the whole, we got 3 complaints thing again,
Right.
explain the complaint. And then we'll just go through and basically we're looking to see those violations that I had talked about before. So for instance, with a restaurant, they need to have that signage. We're looking for face coverings, the employee health measures, physical distancing, and sanitization.
Okay.
And then we kind of look at it and decide there. So we actually bring both a letter of approval and what's called an order for immediate compliance when we go. So we're prepared for either option. And we don't take, so we take the complaint seriously, and that will cause us to go on an inspection, but those complaints do not lead us. We will never give an order for immediate compliance based on just the complaints alone. It has to
Right.
be what I see during the inspection. So if when I go and I see no violations, even if we got a complaint, I see no violations, they're approved. So when they're there, if there are small violations, they might still get an approval letter. If they're just missing some of the signage, it happens. It's not that big of a violation. So we
Yeah.
provide the signage for them. We tell them, hey, hang this up. Or you need to put some markers on the floor for distancing. And then, we give them the approval letter and off we go. If unfortunately there are several violations or ones that are pretty egregious, for instance, like no employees wearing a mask at all, like not a single mask in the place, that's a pretty serious violation. So then we'll give them, again, it's called the order for immediate compliance. And what that means is it's basically telling the business owner that these are the regulations. We're following it based on the executive order and the MDH secretary's order. And that these violations need to be corrected immediately. So we will go over again. Since I've done so many inspections at this point, I often give suggestions for how they can fix it. So again, when we're talking about seating at the bar, I tell them, other bars have put tape down on the bar top to indicate, this 6-foot area is closed. I have given them suggestions with mask compliance. I'll tell them, maybe some of your employees have ill-fitting masks, and maybe you can work with those employees to get a mask that actually fits your face.
Right.
Because, we all have wildly different faces, and sometimes the mask is either too big or too small, uncomfortable. I get it. So, I'll work with them so that they know exactly how to fix those violations. So then we'll do another inspection after I've given that order for immediate compliance. We'll do another drop-in inspection sometime within 3 days. Typically, it's that second or third day. So that gave them enough time to kind of fix those violations. So then we come back, and we always have a second inspector with us at that re-inspection. And at that point, if everything fixed, that's great. And they'll get an approval letter and all is great. And if things are not fixed at that inspection, that's kind of when we need to come back. We'll discuss it with, the health officer, the deputy health officer, and we'll kind of figure out how to go from there.
Right. With the mask, what if there's an employee, and I'm sure, even if it's not an employee, like customers that you see this at the grocery store sometimes, that cannot wear a mask due to COPD or something like that. Is there another alternative for them?
Yeah, so the best alternative, I tell them, is according to the executive order, the face shields, as long as they cover your whole face, they are an acceptable face covering option. So those shouldn't affect breathing. I know sometimes they fog up, and that's less than ideal, but that is an option for people who can't wear that cloth face covering. And when it comes to customers, so if a customer can't wear a face mask and, they're not able to get a face shield, the business will provide them with certain accommodations. So that doesn't mean the customer is allowed to just walk in the store like normal, because then they're putting themselves at risk. They're putting other employees at risk. But they can do things like curbside pickup or, delivery to their home. They can even, certain businesses will, allow the customer to give them a list, and the employee will go and pick out all the items and shop for them right there. So there are other options for customers who are unable to wear a face covering. Everything has to be a reasonable accommodation for those individuals.
Can you add something? Because the last podcast I did, actually, it was with Molly and Rania, and they brought up a good point that I never thought of. And I tell everybody I talk to about this now. face mask. What is an appropriate face mask?
Yeah, so the best one, as far as the research that I've seen, is a tight weave, so like a cotton weave with multiple layers, ideally at least 3, and it should fit your face well. I realize that we're on a podcast and you can't see my hands, but I'm holding them up to my face. So the ones that have like the adjustable ear loops, or I've even used string to tie the ear loops because I have a small face. So the ear loops should fit comfortably on your ears, not make your ears fold forward. If they're folding forward, you might need to tie a string on the back connecting the loops to make them bigger. There shouldn't be any big gaps anywhere on the mask. So there are all the other options for masks. You do want to keep the ones like the surgical masks or the N95s. Those really should be prioritized for healthcare workers if you can, or
Right.
people who are doing things that are putting them at high risk. But in general, those cloth face coverings are your best options. You want to avoid the ones that have the vents. Unfortunately, those little vents basically are letting your breath, which with any potential viruses and bacteria come out. So that's not really protecting others. There is some debate, I believe, about the Gator style mask. But at this point, nothing has come out to say that that's not appropriate. So that's what we go with. Until anything says that that's not an appropriate face covering, that is perfectly allowed. I know the executive order also mentions using scarves. So if you're really in a pickle and you forgot your face mask, but you happen to have a scarf in the back of your car, tie that around your face as tightly as you can, obviously, so you can still breathe, but, try to prevent those gaps from forming.
Right.
Unfortunately, with a lot of the face masks, I know I had to go through a bit of trial and error finding ones that I liked and that actually fit my face. Luckily, I was able to do that. Which is why sometimes with business owners, if there are a bunch of employees who it looks like their face masks aren't fitting, I will advise maybe the owner offer to work with the employee on a solution if, the employee is unable to afford to, try out 5 different masks to see which one fits.
I actually found myself throwing away a couple of masks because I did a test that Rania said and held a candle at arm's length, and I was able to blow it out with the mask on, so I threw it away.
Yeah, that is a very good test to try.
I tell everybody that.
Yeah,
I would have never thought about that.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to see, because obviously, yeah, if you're able to blow out the candle, then everyone can get exposed to anything that you might have had.
Yeah. Anything else I'm missing? Anything to add?
I don't think so. Unfortunately I had to talk a lot when it comes to the compliance, but basically it boils down to the main thing. We are here. Our main purpose as a health department is education. And I know me personally, my passion is outreach. It just so happens that I also have to do the part that's less fun, the inspections. I don't really enjoy doing that. I don't want to see anybody get in trouble. That's not why I'm doing this job. But we do, I'm trying to keep everyone safe. That includes the people who are working at the business and their customers. So if you see us, we're not the enemy.
You're there to help.
Exactly. And just because a business got complaints doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong necessarily. There could be a lot of reason for those complaints. And that's why I come out, because I am there to verify it. So even if they got complaints, if I see nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong.
Right. See, and I think that's a myth that a lot of people, you get nervous about. The health department's coming out, oh, we're in trouble. No, you're coming out there to help. And a lot of people need to understand that. You are the good guys.
I know. I wish I could convince people. I think at this point, a lot of people might not really like me anymore. But I swear, I'm a nice person. I'm just trying to make everything better for everyone as much as I possibly can.
Well, if anybody's got any questions, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we have a whole bunch of different ways, and it's possible that other people might want to chime in here as well. But we have all of our social media. People can contact us directly from that. We do have a COVID-specific email, and that's HCHD, so as in Harford County Health Department, and then a period, COVID, COVID, @ Maryland, and it's spelled out, lovethepodcast.gov, so people can direct any, questions or comments or anything like that to that email. They can also call our main number. We do take questions that way. It might go to a messaging system so we can kind of distribute it to multiple people because of our, large influx of calls. So don't be alarmed if you reach a message. We are listening to every message and we're responding to every message. And then also we have posted a survey specifically for businesses, both on our social media and it's on our website. Basically, this survey is to gather input from business owners because we're trying to be more proactive with getting that information out to the business owners. So business owners can fill out that survey and they can choose if they'd like further contact from us. And eventually, once we build up, a list of emails, we will start working with the people who would like that further contact to make sure that we're distributing that information. There are various ways that we're going to try. That's part of the survey, is to see how people would like it, whether they want pre-filmed videos that we post, if they want email updates, if they'd like, I can always do a presentation for, a group of people where they can interact, they can ask, questions at the end. Obviously, it will have to be virtual, various different ways that we can communicate with them. So that survey, if anybody who has a business, if they're an owner, if they're a manager, would like to fill that out, that's a really good way for us to kind of stay in touch.
And if there's any way I can help you guys with any of that, just let me know. I didn't know about that survey. I'm glad you told me.
It's very new. We're just published it, I think, this week.
So it's okay for me to share that with like members of the chamber and all?
That would be amazing.
Okay. All right. I will definitely do that. Well, I want to thank you all again. It's been nice talking to you all. You don't realize how much I really miss this.
Oh, we miss you too, Rich. We always have so much fun.
If you have any questions for the health department, especially for what we just talked about, you can actually email them at HCHD. That's short for Harford County Health Department, COVID@maryland.gov. Again, that's HCHD, COVID@maryland.gov. If you have any questions for the health department, make sure you give them a call. Call them at 410-838-1500, or you can go to harfordcountyhealth.com. Look at all the services they provide. There's so much information on there about COVID and other things. Again, that's harfordcountyhealth.com. I'd like to remind everybody, please leave me a review of the podcast. It's very simple to do. All you have to do is go to lovethepodcast.com/Harco Living. Again, that's lovethepodcast.com/Harco Living. And again, the links will be in the show notes, so you can always go right there and look for everything. Also, buy me a coffee. That's right. You hear me talk about it all the time. Buy me a coffee. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/Harco Living, you can actually make a donation to the podcast so I can keep this thing going. $3, $5, as much as $50 for the year if you want. And if you're an annual, donator at $50 a year, I'm going to send you something special. Again, that's buymeacoffee.com/Harco Living. Now, I said I was going to have something special for you at the end of this episode, and I do. It's giveaway time once again. So what I'm going to do, I am going to give a $25 gift card to anybody that, well, not anybody. You have to actually leave a review. Again, that's at lovethepodcast.com/Harco Living. And let's say for St. Patty's Day, because that's, one of my favorite holidays. St. Patrick's Day, I am going to pick a winner, and they will get a $25 gift card to Route 24 Ale House. If you already left a review, you're fine. You're already qualified. You're already entered. But again, if you haven't, please go to lovethepodcast.com/Harco Living, and you're going to be entered to win a $25 gift card to Route 24 Ale House. And if you haven't been there yet, you got to go there. I stopped there not too long ago, and I had the Kickin' Bourbon Burger. Let me tell you, one of the best burgers I ever had. And the wings are out of this world. If you don't believe me, just go there and try it yourself. Again, that's Route 24 Ale House. You can always just go to route24alehouse.com. It's that easy to find. So go ahead, leave a review, and hopefully you'll win the $25 gift card.